Walk in, he said, and you shoot them in the fucking knee. Everyone back then, come on, most people had fallout shelters. According to him, waterboarding doesn't work.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
Said the number one thing in interrogating somebody, he said, you walk in, I'm dead serious, he said this, he said, you walk in, he said, and you shoot them in the fucking knee. It's like, wow, he goes, you got to kill him anyway. It's like, wow, Dad. You know, but he stopped doing racing when Vietnam started heating up. And he started doing things over there. And that's where he came up with, him and some other guys, he said, came up with something called high-altitude interrogation. High-altitude interrogation is where apparently you take 5 insurgent types, and you go up in a helicopter, X amount of high. He said, before you say shit to anybody, you throw the first 2 out the fucking door. You don't say shit. You just throw them right out the door. He said, then the next one, you blow his head off. He said, then one of the 2 that you know is the guy in charge is either going to talk or you hang him out the damn door and you fly him over the treetops. I said, wow, Dad. I said, wow. Like that's, he said, it works. He said, if they're killing my guys, then fuck them. Yeah, it's the way you grow up.
Look, I know he's trained. I know this is how he's brought up. I'm sure you get a little bit jaded, a little bit calloused, a little bit. I don't know if I could do it. I mean, I understand the logic. I don't know if I could shoot a guy in the knee or, you know, throw a guy out of a helicopter.
I don't know if I could do it either. And thank God I never ever hope to ever have to. Thank God. You know, it's not my line of work, but you know, Dad was one of those cold warriors. You know, he's doing things in the middle of the 60s and the 70s when everyone thinks that the balloon's about to go up. Back then, the intelligence services, they didn't have rules like they have today. You always hear about all these crazy things from the Cold War, and they're usually true. As a matter of fact, they're almost always true because these guys, they didn't have an option. You know, there was no plan B because plan B was DEFCON 1. You know, everyone back then, come on, most people had fallout shelters in the 60s.
So he'd laugh at, waterboarding.
According to him, waterboarding doesn't work. When waterboarding became a big scandal, he said, shit doesn't work. He said, what you do is you keep a motherfucker up for about 5 or 6 days listening to loud music. He said, banging drums, keep him up for about 5 or 6 days. He said, you really just really get him. He said, you play something just horrible for his ass. He said, and by then they've mentally fallen apart. He said, but if you need information now, then the drugs don't always work. So, and the pain doesn't always work. He said, depending on someone's conditioning, it depends on their the method of extraction of information.
This has been Jeff Stearns, connected through cars.